Welcome to Whole Team Eats Podcast, a 24/8 media production. Ever wonder who trains your favorite athlete? Join Tim Miller as he takes a look at the behind-the-scenes training of professional and collegiate athletes. Tim connects with trainers, athletes, and others in the sports community to share their stories. This podcast is dedicated to highlighting the work of athletes and trainers to inspire action and build community.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to an all-new episode of Whole Team Eats Podcast. This is episode 13, season 2. I'm your host, Tim Miller, and on the show, I sit down with Nem Ilic, founder of Unlocked. Nem grew up in Winnipeg and found a passion for basketball early on. After moving to Hamilton, Canada, he devoted a lot of his childhood to consistently work on training and finding ways to become a better basketball player and athlete. After Nem's playing days came to an end, Nem refocused that same energy and passion that he had for playing into training others. On the show, we discuss how Nem started by working in a corporate gym to educate himself before making the transition into opening up his own training facility. Nem has built up a training business that includes several collegiate and professional athletes. One of the most notable athletes that Nem trains is first-team All-NBA guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of Oklahoma City Thunder. This relationship first started with Shai as an Instagram message, which shows Nem's ambition and confidence in his training. It's my pleasure to introduce Nem Ilic, founder of Unlocked, to the show. Nem, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I know we connected about a month ago at this point, and I've been following your training for quite some time, but excited to have you on the show, and I've been watching your training a lot more recently. One thing, and I wanted to ask, is I'm seeing a lot of different like cold plunge stuff with your athletes. Is there a reason why you put such an emphasis on that style of training?
Yeah, for sure. For me, the biggest there's a lot of physiological benefits behind it, but for me, the biggest thing is just mentally. It's one of those things that's it's just so hard, so annoying and uncomfortable to get into for such a short period of time, but knowing what you get out of it from not only a physiological standpoint, but just that mental rush, the adrenaline rush, like you're just ready to go right after that. So it's a big thing that I try to push onto them now that I actually have one at my spot. It's a whole lot easier because, all right, here we go. We're starting minute and a half, 2 minutes. Then we're going to get our blood flowing and we're getting into our workout. So I actually do it pre-workout.
Yeah, that's something I've seen more and more with trainers, and I've been meaning to ask the last couple of trainers we had on the podcast, but it's interesting. You're saying it's a mental aspect and kind of get the prime for a workout.
Yeah, so I know often it's been looked at, okay, we're gonna use the ice and the cold from a recovery standpoint, and people would do it post workout right away. They'd hop in. Now, the only issue with that is you want your body to go through its natural inflammation process after a workout to repair your muscle. So to kind of impede that by submerging in super cold waters, this isn't like a cold shower that we're talking where, it might be, I know you're in Fahrenheit, but let's say, I don't know, 60 degrees Fahrenheit, right? This is something that it's relatively like I'm going low 40s, high 30s, really high 30s actually, but it's a way to get your body primed. So I know when you go into it's going to sound counterintuitive, but as you go into the cold, your body actually has to do much more work to heat up. So it's not something that you want to kind of do, for example, at nighttime when your body should be cooling down, getting ready for bed, right? So pre-workout, you do it, you force your body to now heat up, and then when we get into our stuff, now you're feeling that blood flowing just like tenfold. It's a crazy different experience when it's pre-workout as opposed to just, after workout when you already have an adrenaline rush and you already feel like you can do anything, right? So that's why I say from a mental standpoint, it's tough. It's tough to get in there when you're not even, you haven't been through your workout, you haven't been through your day yet, and now it's like, okay, now we got to get into cold, right? So I like to do it from that standpoint, nothing really to do from a recovery standpoint.
Yeah, it's interesting doing it kind of backwards from conventional thinking. And I've always, when I was an athlete in my playing days, always was taught to do it after a workout or after a game. But there is, as you're alluding to, a certain mental aspect when you're doing it to start and prime your body for a workout. And just to take a step back here, where most of my episodes start is now we're 6 months halfway through the year. But how has training been so far in 2023? And I guess for you, what we've seen with your training with some of the basketball athletes that you train, most notably, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder. I guess some of your off-season training is just beginning with the end of the NBA season in the last 2 months or so.
Yeah. So I definitely have a unique schedule, and I feel like a lot of guys that do work with athletes at this level do, because when they are in season, I did spend some time in Utah with Nikhil, and that kind of occupies some of my time during my off season, which you want to call. But once their off season hits, that's really the bulk of my training and where I got to really devote my time to and my schedule to. So it's a different experience because they are playing a season and our training is for that season. It's not like I'm just training them year in, year out, or sorry, year round. There is a time, right? So in this case, not making the playoffs for Shea in Oklahoma City, we have about actually he has Team Canada World Cup in August, so it's a little bit of a shorter time. We have about 3 months of total work that we get in. So it's trying to just get him back after, you know, all the hits he takes during the year and that gruesome season, just getting his body back to its baseline to be able to, improve some of his strength and some of his ability to move and just making sure he's back to where he was when I last saw him last summer.
Yeah, and I think that's important is getting these athletes back to baseline before doing anything else from there. And after a rigorous season, it's a long season, and I know you need to get your athletes ready to be in a position to train again. But first, getting them back to baseline is super important. We'll circle back to Shea a little bit later in the episode.
Yep.
Obviously, he had a couple awards this year, and a lot of that can be credited to some of the work you do with him. So you play a role in that as well. But really, just if you could give our listeners an idea of who you are, your background, where you grew up, what sports did you play, and then eventually how did you find a passion for training?
For sure. So I grew up playing basketball primarily. Initially, it was soccer. So I'm of Serbian descent. I was born in Serbia, moved over to Canada when I was about, I think it was around 2 years old. We moved to Winnipeg, which super cold. So it's funny because now I'm into like the whole cold plunge and doing it extreme like outside when it's wintertime. But back then, the reason my parents moved out of Winnipeg was because it was too cold. So left there, we moved over down to Hamilton, which is about 40 minutes outside of Toronto. So close to there. And that's funny enough where same area that Shay actually grew up. But for me, it was basketball from, I want to say like grade nine. When I first, growing up, elementary school, it was just playing sports. It was never, training. It was never any of that back in those days. And it wasn't until my freshman year in high school where I actually saw somebody at the gym one day just training and working out, and he was good. And I was like, damn, this is what people do. So from that day, that literally sparked something in me where it was nonstop from grade nine till my fourth year, grade 12 year in high school, just every single day I was doing the most. Like my life was kind of devoted to that. And then, you get to a point where you realize, shit, like to get to that high level, it's not everyone is going to go just make it there, right? There's 450 NBA players, right? So not to say, I give up on my dream, but looking back at it, everything that taught me in life was a must. Like I needed to go through that. I needed to devote my life to that, and then didn't work out. Okay, then you move on, which I'll get into right now. But so from there, it was after high school days, going to college, going to university here. I just no longer felt that fire inside of me to play, and don't know exactly why or what, but even the team at the school I was at it was like an 18-man team. So I just figured, you know what? I don't want to be part of a 20-guy roster where I'm not even playing. It's either I'm playing, I'm doing what I've been doing, or let's give it up and move on. And then from there, it's tough. It's tough to transition. It does take time. And especially at that young of an age, being 18, I think it was 18, 19 years old, all of a sudden it was my whole high school life, my whole high school career. It wasn't partying. It wasn't enjoying time with, it was basketball. So now all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, you have so much free time. What the hell do I do? That's where, unfortunately, but I feel like at that age, you just go into that little party phase. I go, you say downhill a little bit. And then it wasn't until maybe second or third year at school that I kind of got into, sorry, I started training that first year, so freshman year. And I was like, well, I still want to be in shape. I don't want to completely just stop being involved in anything to do with physical activity. So I stayed in shape. And then as I started to realize, like, you know what, this isn't me partying every weekend, doing this. Like, I'm not really doing anything. I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. So seeing that I had that passion with fitness and as a whole and trying to improve myself, then I was just like, damn, this is my way to really stay involved with basketball, with sports, right? Because this is all I do. All I watch is sports. All you talk about is sports, 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 right? So I knew there was nothing else that would make sense for me to do after putting so much time and effort and knowing what hard work was to move on to something else. So from there, that's where I kind of got into it. It was maybe second or third year that I actually got a job at just a corporate gym. Started working there, got into the industry a little bit, worked with general pop people, couple athletes, just low level athletes that were down to just train. So it wasn't anything crazy. And then as I started to really like dive deeper into that, that's when I realized, okay, this is something I can actually run with and do as a career. So that's essentially my background story and how I got into training.
So I think it's hard for athletes, even high school athletes, to kind of have that realization that, number one, you've put so much time and effort into preparing and training for that respective sport, in your case, basketball, and then to, at a certain age, 18, 19 years old, just kind of shift that line of thinking, saying, okay, this is not going to be my future. What else is a way for me to be a part of this? And for you, you kind of knew it a little bit at the start, but then after a few years, it really started to set in that training was that avenue for you to stay involved in, training and obviously with basketball and different athletes and things of that nature. So you go through the corporate side of things at the gym. How do you actually transition from where you were at a corporate gym to running your own business, training your own athletes and general population clients?
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. And I just feel it's like it's like a lot of different industries and careers, right? I feel like when you get to a certain level and you realize from a financial standpoint, from just myself, like I know, okay, I don't want to be tied down to, taking orders from somebody to train this person this way, or I gotta train this person, or I have to train this person, right? Going through times where there were clients that I was not I wouldn't say forced to train, but I was given clients, and early on, like you're just gonna train anybody. But then you really realize like I'm in an industry of relationships and having like if I'm seeing you every single day, 5 days, let's say, sorry, for an hour a day, 5 days a week, right? That's a lot of time to develop some sort of relationship. And if we don't get along, I'm doing myself a disservice and I'm doing you a disservice. But at the beginning stage in your career, like you're not thinking about these things. So you're just picking on clients and clients, right? And as you start to realize, okay, you grow out of that, you grow past that, it's like, okay, it's time to do something because I can do something better than this. Then it's a transition where I still feel like you have to go through that corporate side of things to one, gain some experience and gain the ability to be able to, see, okay, well, this is not a type of person that I feel like I can actually work with. This is a type of person I can work with. And for me, the biggest thing was once I started to train some of these athletes, and specifically Shai, I started to realize, okay, well, now I have done this. I've gotten to this point where I have guys seeking me out as opposed to me just being fed clients and spoon-fed clients for somebody else's profit. Now it's time, okay, let's take the next step, right? What else am I really waiting for here? So you have to still be willing to take that step. Not everyone's going to do it. You're still going to have trainers that work for somebody, right? Not everyone wants to go down that route where you're in control of essentially everything you do from a day-to-day basis. People still want to have some sort of security and be spoon-fed, the general pop, and that's fine, right? It just I know that was never me from day one. I would always look at that with whatever it was that I thought I wanted to do work-wise. It was never, okay, I want to just be tied down and just slaving away for somebody else, right? I love to do this, but when I'm doing it for myself and just to help whoever it is I'm working with, that just makes me feel way better than as opposed to working for somebody and knowing that shit, this person is gaining from my expertise and my experience with these athletes.
So, my first question for you is, one, how did you started getting outreach from athletes? Like, how did they start seeking you out? And two, once athletes started to seek you out and ask you to train them personally, was that the validation you needed to take that leap of faith and kind of go on your own?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I have a different route. Usually, you're going to start in that corporate side. You're going to train some youth. You're going to train some high school kids. You're going to work your way up with age. I was at a point where I just felt like in my area and the people around me, I felt like nobody was really doing what I was trying to do. There was nobody I could, even like not to say that at that time I was better than these people, but I felt like there's nobody that I was really could say, okay, I want this person to mentor me in some way. So it got to a point where I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna reach out to Shai's manager because this is how it all started with me. It wasn't 10, 15 athletes before Shai. It was essentially two, three guys on the low before Shai, and then boom. So I reached out to his manager and I was like, yo, if Shai's gonna spend his off season in Hamilton, I don't know. But if he is, I feel like I'm the right guy to work with. And that was just me thinking, you know what? It's either he says no and I'm in the exact same position in my life, right? Or it's a yes, and this is a great opportunity for me to now grow for myself and my career. And that's how we started, right? So it wasn't like I knew him before that, or it wasn't that he reached out to me at the time. It was literally just I felt like I was ready for it, and I seeked it out. That happened. Obviously, once that happens and people start seeing, okay, well, some guy that's from Hamilton, Ontario, there's one NBA player in Hamilton. Who's he training with? Okay, let me train with this guy too. And that's kind of how the ball started to roll with that. So it's a different route, right? I know a lot of trainers start young and they work their way up to that, and that's something that I would have been willing to do, but I took advantage of the opportunity, and I feel like I'm making the most of it.
Yeah, and every trainer's story is different, right? So you are different from another trainer who's different from any other trainer of how they cracked into the business. Now, as you're alluding to, traditionally, usually you work your way up, not even just training, but in most industries, right?
Yeah.
But for you, you had ambition to say, I'm confident in my training abilities. I know what I'm capable of. I feel like I'm the right fit for this type of athlete. In this case, you were very comfortable taking that jump to training one of the best NBA athletes. But what does it say to you now that you've been working with Shea for a period of time? For one, it's a great athlete to train because he's become a household name. But do you feel like you have a role in what he's become over these last couple of years? And obviously now he's been awarded first team All NBA, which is a huge honor. Obviously we here at 24/8 Media know that trainers are a big part of what these athletes do on the court in season. But how was that for you as validation to your training and your business and every decision you've made to be training one of the best athletes in the NBA?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do feel like you said, trainers do have to play a big part. because you can either benefit that athlete, or you could also make them, suffer. So it's I feel like doing the right things and really paying attention, because it could have been very easy, all of a sudden it's even at the time, like, sure, it was still an NBA guy, so you could still feel like, oh my God, like I gotta do the most, right? I gotta kill him to make sure he loves this, right? It wasn't really like that. Luckily, he was a scrawny kid at that time, like first year NBA, but he couldn't really do much. So I didn't need to do much to be like, okay, yeah, you're getting something out of this. And it wasn't really until he got traded that I started doing my own thing with him, because I was essentially following like what the Clippers had sent me to do, just because they had seen him, they didn't really know me. So it was a little bit different at the beginning. Now I kind of just go about with what I do with him. But it definitely is a validation, because this is what I'm putting my effort and time into, and being able to see him grow, seeing his body grow and mature, and just listen to things, right? It was a whole lot different. And we talk about this all the time. Like, he would walk into workouts first year eating like cream cheese bagels and like an apple juice. I'm like, all right, well, I can't, I'm not going to be able to change this right away, but this is something that's going to have to be addressed. And it's not one of those things where I'm going to, okay, I'm now your father, I'm going to just change your whole life. But slowly, just making them make right decisions here, making them make right decisions there. And as the athlete, whoever it is, starts to really see benefit from one thing and then the next, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, he's only giving me advice that's going to benefit me, so maybe I should listen to this as well. But yeah, so it's a little bit different with that approach to it, but it's honestly, it does make you feel like you are doing the right thing and you are helping him in a way, especially when you see things that you work on and you see him now start to feel it with how he plays, or that athlete can be like, oh look, I did this. This is what we work on. Like, those are the type of things that make you feel good when they actually start to buy into what you're doing.
Yeah, and trainers like yourself, you play a huge role in what the athletes, who they are and who they become. Obviously, if you're saying Shai was, a little bit scrawny, he was on the thin side when he was beginning his career in the NBA, but you've actually seen that transformation from where he started to where he is today, and you've played a huge role in that. So not just helping, strength, but also recovery, nutrition, just even the mental aspect of it, as you started out with the cold plunge to start workouts. So priming the body and getting the athlete mentally prepared for the workouts is just kind of changing that thought process and mental aspect of things. And one thing that I've seen a lot in your training, and I've been really wanting to ask you, is you put an emphasis on barefoot training. Can you talk a little bit about why you do that and the benefits of barefoot training?
Yeah, for sure. So the biggest thing, the reason I got into it is because my feet sucked. So relatively have a wider foot. All those years of playing sports and being squeezed into tighter shoes, as I started to age a little bit, and it's crazy because I'm not even that old, but I was already starting to feel the effects of sore feet, and being able to play when you're young. Then all of a sudden I try to do that again at 25, 26. And I was like, damn, there's no reason I should be having sore feet already. So this is just crazy. So my barefoot journey started really, I want to say, three years ago. And the biggest thing for me was I tried to go into straight into barefoot shoes, and so having essentially no heel drop. After training 2 to 3 clients a day, my feet would be aching, like screaming in pain. I was like, okay, this is crazy. Like, there's no way my feet are this sore. I went from a size 11 to a size 12, just because my foot went from being here to now, okay, now there's some splay. The muscles are back to where they should be. Seeing so many issues go away with the rest of the body, knee, hip, back areas, and the effects of having strong feet. And then Shea had a little bit of an issue with some plantar fasciitis in his right side. And you look at his foot, and we still work on it to this day. but he couldn't move his toes. Everything was squeezed together, this toe on top of this one. It was chaos. And knowing that that's your foundation, like that's the only body part that is always touching the ground. Obviously, not talking about jump, but that's the first thing to touch the ground, and that's the thing that's 95% of the day is on the ground. So to have no feel for what your feet can do, and to have no strength in them, to have no mobility, no stability, it's going to cause a lot of issues. It's going to cause issues with ankle sprains. It's going to cause issues with your ability to control your knee, the stability there, your hip mobility. It's going to cause a whole lot of issues going up. And growing up, I always had ankle sprains. I couldn't even walk barefoot without my toes cracking every step I took. My ankles cracking every step I took. I'm like, damn, I'm literally less than 30 years old. What's going on? And it's crazy because now I can't get my toes to crack. So I spend almost my whole day just barefoot, allowing my foot to actually do what it should do. And I try to always draw a comparison. It would be the equivalent to, I just keep my leg in an extended position sitting down all day. You're gonna eventually forget how to even use the muscles in your thighs, your quads, your hamstrings. Forget how to flex them. Forget what their use really is. So the same shit happens with the foot. It's always in tight socks and tight shoes, and you have no feel for the ground. You have no idea what the ground should feel like, how your foot is working. And trust me, it's so obvious when you take an athlete, especially a basketball player, outside of their shoes, take them out of their shoes, get them barefoot, and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, you can't even stand straight. Like your feet are just everywhere. They're doing everything, trying to regain some stability. So seeing that and then seeing my process and how it's been a journey to get from being that to now, I feel like my feet can almost do anything. And knowing the effects from a performance standpoint, from a pain standpoint, now I can go play something for 3 4 hours and not feel like my whole body's done for the day. So my big emphasis is on that because again, they do spend so much time in shoes. Any athlete, right? Any athlete spends so much time in shoes that you forget how to use your feet, and you're just doing a disservice to the rest of your body because though that's your foundation, and without strong feet, good luck.
Yeah, you nailed it. Trying to make sure that you have a strong foundation is essential to any athlete in any sport. And you're right.
Right.
A lot of athletes spend the majority of their time in shoes, playing sports. And you really need to get back to the basics and really build athletes from their lower half, or in this case their feet up. So feet and ankles, we know from talking from trainers, is a big reason. So I should say a big point of emphasis that they have with a lot of their athletes, and for good reason. And you kind of just give us a background on why you do so. I know you mentioned earlier you didn't really exactly have any particular mentor, but is there anybody who you modeled your training after, or who did mentor you to kind of help you model model the way you do things, or actually help you make that decision to move into your own business?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely, when I said I didn't have I meant like a local one. But from luckily with Instagram and stuff, I did. I definitely seeked out, and a lot of it came from both Donnie Raymond, who worked with LeBron. He works with Chris Paul now, and David Alexander from Miami. They helped me a lot from taking just learning from them, but also from a business standpoint. David helped me out a lot just to take that step. All right, this is what you got to do. This is how to run it. This is how, and then from there, it's a growing process. Like I'm always gonna look back and learn on my own as well. But where I would say I model my training from. That's where I the assessment that I do, right? A lot of the stuff that I did, model my training, and now what I'm trying to develop with my whole system is based off of what I learned from them and at DBC.
Yeah, interesting. We follow their training as well, and David Alexander is somebody who we've kept a close eye on is his training, and it's interesting to hear that other trainers like yourself are starting to model their training after his. And just to wrap up here, one question I like to ask a lot of folks is, you've gone through a lot to get to where you are today, and you probably had a lot of different obstacles and hurdles and learning moments along the way. But is there anything, if you could go back in time, would you change anything about your younger self and your journey, or would you kind of keep it the way it is and everything has gone to this point?
100% keep it the way it is. I'm a big believer that in life, everything that you do is going to lead to where you are right now. So who knows, if I didn't send that text to Shai's manager at the time, where I would be right now. Like who knows if I was just like, maybe I'm not ready for that. Or if I didn't, if I decided to play basketball in college, like would that now have delayed my transition an extra 2, 3 years, which would have delayed my, you know what I mean? Like there's so many ways to look back and say things could have gone differently. And as rough as it was at times, with like shit, what am I doing? I don't know what to do. Where's my life headed right now? Looking back at it, you know that all those steps and everything that did transpire is what led me to where I am today. And I feel like there's moments in your life that when you are going through those things, it triggers something to be like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I gotta act. So if it wasn't as bad as it was with, let's say, partying and drinking alcohol, if it wasn't as bad as that, maybe I wouldn't have been like, okay, it's enough of this, right? Like, let's say I did keep it at moderation, then maybe I would have just been content with keeping it at moderation. But for me, I've always grown up just like, my parents always said in extremes. It was either I'm fully doing this or I'm fully doing that. I hated being in the middle, whether it's by financial standpoint, whether it's career. That's why I've never liked just chill, being the average middle. It's always I'm trying to seek out more. I'm trying to do more, and why not? Why not? Why am I not able to do this? Because I feel like I am. So that's what really I would say. Like it's every step that I went through and everything I went through in life. I would not change for a single thing.
Yeah, and I think you hit on it, like your ambition, right? To whatever you're doing, you want to do it to the best of your ability. So it speaks to who you are as a person. That's kind of translated into who you are as a trainer and your training, and it's really what gave you the confidence to take that step to send that text to somebody like Shai. Is you're confident in your abilities, you're confident in the hours of the work that you've put in to become the trainer that you were at that point. And that confidence and trust in yourself, ultimately investing in yourself is number one, but that's led to a compounding effect of success for you, your athletes, so on and so forth. We know that when athletes pick a trainer, they're putting their trust in them, that they're going to get that next contract or they're going to take their game to the next level. And that's been evident for very evident for Shai, making first team All NBA and one of the best young players in the NBA. And a lot of that can be attributed to you and your training and what you've done with him. So we like to say, Nem, your training and everything you're doing is not going unnoticed. We hope to bring your story to more people. But once again, Nem Ilic, founder of Unlocked, here on Whole Team Meets. Thanks for coming on the show.
Appreciate you having me, man. That was fun.